Welcome to Game Dev Weekly, the weekly show where I do game development. If you're new here, I'm working on a game called Hydroneer, a mining game where you turn gold and other resources into profit to build giant mining machines. Last week we left off with the new 0.2 update. This week I'm going to be working on a new area as well as adding in some difficulty in the game. If you like the look of Hydroneer and want to try it out, join my Patreon. From $2 you can play the current version as well as support the development and request new features. So this week I'm going to be working on just finishing some bugs from 0.2. Mainly, I've finished a few already. I've actually got 0.2.1 out already. That was just a few little bug fixes. I accidentally left a tree sticking out of a building and I forgot to put something in one of the stores. So that update's out now, and now I'm going to be working on 0.3. Unless any more bugs come through, which I'll fix them and release some more fixes for that. So the first thing I want to be doing with this is I want to have a completely new area, and this area is going to be more of a dwarf inspired area. The first one was a human one, so this one's going to be a dwarven town. It's going to be a bit bigger. Also, I want to do a few more things with the terrain, make it look a bit nicer and easier to use. First thing I need to do is to find some concept art. So I'm going to be looking on the internet, find some concept art from games, TV shows, films, books maybe. So I'm going to take that artwork and then build a mood board. With this, when I create the level, I can get a good idea of the new art style that I'm going for, because I want to have a different feel with this. So I'm going to create completely new materials. So when I'm designing the materials of the new models, everything will have a completely different aesthetic. With that, I also want to do a kind of different style of terrain as well, make it actually look a bit different, more mountainous, and also have a completely new color palette. But before I get to that, I have something I need to add into the game, and that is difficulty. Now the game, it doesn't really have any setbacks. You just keep on going, and generally you just have nothing to lose. And the thing that I want to add in here is what's called a money sink. Now game developers will use this in many different ways. In a fighting game, maybe you have a repair fee or maybe a travel cost. And this is a way to take money out of the economy in the game, so the player doesn't get too rich and they don't progress too fast. And one way that I'm going to be doing this is with repair kits like this spanner and also this filter pipe. So what will happen is when the water travels through the pipes, if it travels through one of these filter pipes, then it'll actually clean the water. And that means the end result, which will be this engine, would be a lot less likely to get damaged. When it does get damaged, then you use the spanner and it'll be kind of like a one-use thing. So you click it and it automatically repairs it. Maybe there's some visuals of some sparks flying out of it. And then once it's repaired, then it's back to 100% health. If it drops below 10% health, then it stops working altogether. Now, what I want is that an ability to be able to actually chain these together as well. So let's say you have 4 of them in a row, then it makes the water coming through the pipes extra clean, which makes the engines a lot less likely to break. A way that this takes money out of the economy is the fact that these spanners are just one-time uses. So what I need to do next is first I want to rotate this spanner so it's actually facing upright when you're holding it. Then I need to program this and remake the water pipe system so it includes a variable for the water purity. Then I need to actually add health onto this guy right here, so his durability will decrease as it gets damaged. So I've come across a bit of a problem. One of my assets is causing me a bit of issues. So I found this plugin online. There's a free version which I'm using now and a pro version which is $300. And right now the feature that I need is in the pro version. So right now how it works is I've got one layer of terrain which is using kind of default landscape that can't be moved, and I use another layer of terrain for the diggable ground. And what I'd like is to be able to move this terrain up and down so I can actually have it at different levels. So then this new map can be a lot higher up and it would make a lot more sense as it would be in the mountains, and I can actually move the terrain up to that level to kind of meet my requirements. And also the flat ground that players can dig into, I can actually sculpt that a lot more and make it look a lot more realistic. So the problem that I'm running into is the fact that I can't afford this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pile together some of the Patreon money, some of the money that I made from the scuttle in the previous game, and then I don't even think that's going to cover it. So what I'm going to have to do is dig into my personal savings, and hopefully this will be a good decision, and yeah, use a lot of that. So what does this mean right now? Well, there's two levels. There's a water level and a dirt level. The dirt level is a fixed plane, so it's one big square block which I can't change at all. I can only have it as it is right now. And then there's a water level, which are small pieces of geometry cut up and placed in wherever I want the rivers to be. Now the water has got some properties with it and even some code, so it knows when people are stepping into the water. It knows if a player is trying to fish in the water, or if a pipe is trying to pull water out. The problem that I'm facing right now is I want to have the dirt level to be going above the water level. But since it's one big flat plane that goes across the entire map, it isn't really doable, so the water level always has to be above. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy this plugin, and this plugin will allow me to sculpt the dirt level as I would be doing with the normal terrain, to be able to have different heights on my dirt. But before I get to any of that, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding in new bits of terrain. So what you can see here is the terrain that I've already done, and I'm just going to be drawing around it with this brush, and this brush is essentially just adding in these massive kind of blank chunks of terrain that sort of follow the previous terrain that it's been on. This essentially right here is going to be the entrance to the new zone, so it's going to be like a mountain pass. And as you come down here, I want to have this terrain in a bit of a C shape, kind of wrapping slightly around the block that we've already got. So I'm just going to place bits of terrain right here. And you may actually notice right here with the first level that I've got, you'll see there's this kind of pink border going around. This is basically the physical border that a player can move around. And what you might notice is like a good majority of the terrain is actually in an area that the player can't go around. Kind of just makes the world feel a bit bigger than it actually is when you're inside. So that's something that I'll actually be working on later on as well, is just creating this outside world that the player can't move to but can see from inside the world. Next thing I need to do is to create the new landscape material. Since this is a completely new area, I want to do a completely new artistic style. So I'm going to be doing a snowy kind of area. So here are some of the new textures that I've got. Now I say this quite a few times, textures and materials, and what does that actually mean? Well, every object has got its own material, and materials are made up of textures. So right here I've got different texture samples, and these are just literally just images. And these images, they are tiled to create a landscape material in this instance. Sometimes they can be wrapped around a model when I'm modeling out objects to put in the game. So you can see right here there is loads of these different kind of tiles. You can kind of see how it is actually tiled. When there's kind of foliage and trees and rocks and buildings on top of this, it's quite hard to see, but you may notice it in some places. But since this is just a example right here, you can see it quite clearly. So what I need to do is to take these new textures and add them to my material. So this is my material up here, how I've set it up. Basically what happens is these are landscape coordinates, and these decide how big each tile should be. Since all these textures are hand painted, and some of them are a bit bigger than others, so I've had to add in a few of these just to mix those up. Then these go into some of these blends, and the blends, they kind of just take in some of the material properties and blend them together, which then gets brought out into this thing right here. This is the output of the material, so this is all of the inputs go straight into this, and it designs the material. So all of these ones right here are just what we call base colors, which aren't necessarily just one solid color. It can be a texture like here. So those go in. Then we've got a metallic value, a specular value, roughness. We can have emissive, opacity, all that stuff. These are normal masks here. And what these normal masks are, they sort of work in a 3D effect in a way. They pick up lighting effects in a level, which makes it look a bit 3D. There are other methods of making things look 3D, and this is just one of them. So that's kind of what this does. You can also have something like a height map or tessellation to give a better 3D effect. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these new materials in. I've just been playing around with some of the color palette that I want to use in this level. I've decided what I want to do is kind of put a frost on everything. Make everything look a little bit colder. Right here I've added in those new terrain materials. We've got this kind of big chunky rock here, which looks really nice, as well as this snowy flat plains here. I'll probably add in one more material, maybe another frost material or something. Onto these trees. These are exactly the same trees as the ones I have in the other level, just with a new material on top of them. So these are I've added this white on the kind of end of the tips, and then as it goes back it kind of gets a bit more darker, as well as making the tree stump a little bit darker as well. These plants here, I wanted to have kind of this frosty plant. I think it looks really nice, and then also I wanted to have like a dead grass wheat kind of plant, just to break up the color and add a bit more yellow into the scene. I think I may do a bit more work on this. I want to kind of add some frosted tips to the ends of everything here, but I like the base color how it is now. So you can see here I've just put together a small example level to give you guys an idea of what the finished level might actually look like. I've edited the model so it's got a bit of snow on top. I'll be doing this for all the models that I use in this area, as well as adding some ice so we can have ice lakes. This is where I'm going to leave it for this week's episode. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't recorded, just because this video is already getting pretty long and some of it's just boring code stuff. I'll include some of this in the next week's episode. All the features that I've shown today are going to be in update 0.3. Still not sure when this update is going to come out, probably the next week or two. But if you're interested in picking up the game, head over to the Patreon. The minimum tier is $2 if you want to go and grab a copy of the game. Also, you can request features. Also, I do the giveaway every week. So if you're interested in winning a copy of my previous game, The Scuttle, then leave a like and a comment on this video. And in a few days, I'll go in there, randomly pick one of those names out, and send you a free copy of The Scuttle. Thanks to all of the new Patreons. We've got a few new ones this week. Also, if you could subscribe to the video and like it, that really helps me out. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video. I will see you guys next week.